Hello and welcome to another edition of Motor Cars Enthusiasts. Right off the bat on today's show, excuse the voice, I've been ill lately, but let's get back into the action, including the brand new mid-engine C8 Corvette. Even though General Motors claims that the C8's not going to be mid-engine, we've all seen the videos, we've all seen the photographs of this machine testing in anger. Now, let's go over some of the issues this car has been having ahead of its launch, as it's had somewhat of a difficult birth, if you will. Even though there has been a little bit more light shed on these situations. Remember back in December when the vehicle was long rumored to debut at the Detroit Motor Show, but then these mysterious electrical issues all of a sudden cropped up. It was going to take 6 months to fix. Well, the trick is apparently those electrical issues, if you will, are basically computing issues. The computer inside of the vehicle was actually linked to the cloud to have official over-the-air updates for the automobile to actually help it in real time, if you will. Now, that's probably why we saw this car just continue to test, even though all this rumors about this vehicle's having issues, so that you could lock it down in a certain performance parameters and be able to continue on with your testing. But the actual computing power had to be upgraded a tad bit for it to be hooked to the cloud at all times, so that's a little bit of light being shined on one of the situations. One of the other situations that kind of came about, even though there's nothing real official about this, even though I saw it on the national news, is that apparently the aluminum brace frame that's inside of this vehicle is maybe a tad too soft. At high speed, there was some flexing. Under tremendous torque loads, it was flexing. Even reading some reports that it was breaking out the back glass in the car because of said flexing. Now, in the interest of fair reporting, I am in the auto glass industry. If the back glass, or the back light for this car, if you will, was tempered, there is no way the flexing of the car would break this. If it's Gorilla Glass, if it's possibly laminated glass, there is a possibility it could break. But I'm not for 100% sure what the actual vehicle's back glass is made out of. Now, the other thing is there's apparently going to be some, I don't know, performance modes or some performance variants of this particular machine. The entry-level one somewhere have around 500 horsepower. There's going to be a later version that have 600-700, and then the possibility of a high-end electrified all-wheel drive version have close to 1,000, and that's really what a lot of the rumors have been floating around, that the 1,000 horsepower cars are having torsional issues. It got me thinking, maybe that's the reason why the old Ford GT doesn't have more power than it actually does. Because when you think about it, most cars that have 1,000 horsepower have a carbon monocoque chassis, and that's not something this particular vehicle has. So, there could be some merit in that, even though I think that back glass rumor is totally a hoax. The other situation this car's had in the last situation is apparently just normal teething problems. Every brand new car goes through a little bit of issues in its life, and that's exactly what this machine apparently has been going through as well, just like every other automobile testing on the planet. So there's rumors it's going to come out in the summer, possibly with a standalone event. We'll have to wait and see on that front. And obviously, the Corvette plant's been idle now for, 7-8 months, so it's got another, almost 6, 7, 8, 9 months to a year before it goes back online to build this particular car. So we'll definitely keep you in tune of what we hear, but I think you're just going to wake up one morning and bam, there it is. So we'll definitely keep you in tune of what we hear. Next up on the list, sticking with the Corvette lifestyle, remember when Hertz decided they were going to have the 100th anniversary of Hertz? I guess they really did decide it. They more or less, it was their 100th anniversary. And they wanted to celebrate with 100 special edition Hertz Corvette Z06s. If you watched that particular episode, I really predicted this was a recipe for disaster. You know, nothing parties like a rental, putting a somewhat novice driver in a 650 horsepower rear-wheel drive car was really a recipe for disaster. And I predicted that probably, a quarter to half of these were going to be written off by the folks over Hertz because they're people, not only they're people that work for the company, but also renters themselves were going to end up wadding these things up around trees and all sorts of other undergrowth and other pieces of, this landscape out there. So here's the situation. The reason why I'm even talking about this, these 100 Z06s are now going to be for sale because the 100th anniversary celebration is over. It does bring up a couple other problems, much like at parties like a rental. would you buy a used rental car? Think how people actually treat rental cars. Now, that being said, this could be a real nice opportunity to get your grubby little mitts on a very inexpensive Z06, even though it might be a little rough around the edges. There is the other situation, too. There's only 100 of these for the world, so it's somewhat collectible. Think of the GT350 Mustang Hertz Edition. You know, those things sell for some pretty good coin, even though you or I probably won't live long enough for these things to be actually worth something. So it's going to be very interesting over the next several weeks when we hear about how much these cars are going for and how much of them there are still left to be actually sold. Now let's talk a little bit of movie news, because this, the Rapide E, the electric version of the Aston Martin Rapide, is going to be a movie star. It's going to be the new weapon of choice for one James Bond. 007, yes, the next James Bond franchise. This is going to be 007's new ride. Warmed over by the Q and his group, or her group. I don't know if it's his, Q is going to be him or her. But this vehicle is going to have all the cool gadgets that you were hoping for, and it's going to be involved in a great big chase scene. Of course, wouldn't you have that in a modern-day James Bond film? It does fill me with a little bit of angst, because when you think about a big movie car chase, it is kind of, some of the visceral feeling comes from the sounds, where this car doesn't have a whole lot of them. Even though it's going to have the cool gadgets, it's going to get them out of a lot of jams. So we'll definitely keep you in tune. It's about a year away. April of 2020, about a year from now, that film will be in theaters. Sticking with the movie situation, this is one Alec Baldwin in a new role, a car role. He's going to be playing one John DeLorean. A new film from IFC is going to be coming out in just a couple of months' time, called Framing John DeLorean. Now, if you don't know who John DeLorean was, he was this brash, charismatic character. Someone that I think about a little bit like one Elon Musk. You know, Musk kind of says whatever he thinks, and he's got a car company that was basically, you know, propped up by investors. This is exactly what Mr. DeLorean was, at least later in life. Mr. DeLorean made this meteoric rise to the General Motors ranks, designing and developing some of the great performance cars of its era, then actually renting out on his own to build his own car. We all know the DeLorean, the DMC that actually, well, was in Back to the Future. Everybody knows that particular machine. That particular franchise, that being the DeLorean franchise, was propped up by investors most of its life, and then kind of came to somewhat of a tragic end thanks to some drug situations. But even though DeLorean was just this movie star in real life, dating and marrying supermodels and this huge brash lifestyle all over the planet, again, a little like one Elon Musk. Hopefully Elon Musk's ending days are not in this particular situation. Of course, we all know too about the John DeLorean, the drug situation, the prison sentence, the kind of revise of the DeLorean company, even though he ran out of days of his life before that particular deal went down. This film is going to be pretty fantastic, I hope. It's coming out in just a couple of months' time, June 7th. Again, it's going to be hitting the film festival circuit as well, and supposedly maybe an on-demand or streaming service is going to pick it up as well. So we'll definitely keep you tuned of what we hear coming closer to June 7th. And that's all there was that I thought was worth talking about for this edition of Motor Cars Enthusiasts. Don't forget to like us over on the Facebook page. Links down in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you can do so at any time. The first dibs in the brand new shows as soon as they come out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again real soon.